It's time to check out a very inexpensive e-bike. This is the Qronge Meteors ST, and it's one of the least expensive commuter style e-bikes I've tested so far. It's got a step-through frame, front suspension, a claimed 25 mph top speed, and it's only $699. Can a bike this cheap actually be any good or any fun? Today, let's take a close look at the features and the specs and take it for a ride and see how it does. Okay, so right off the bat, I've never heard of this e-bike brand before, but I'm always interested in all types of mobility, especially for those on a limited budget. And that seems to be the customer that this bike is for. E-bikes are helping change the narrative that bikes just have to be for fun. They're also becoming quite popular for those that need to get to work or get to school, or for those that can't afford a car or don't want to own a car. There are a ton of different types of e-bikes on the market with a huge range of prices, from high-end bikes down to something like this, where you might be wondering if they had to cut corners to make the bike so cheap. But we'll do our due diligence today and investigate. Is a budget commuter style e-bike like this one decent to ride and own? Today, let's find out. All right, so let's check out all of the features and specs here. Qronge is touting the Meteors ST as a commuter style bike, but it kind of vibes a little bit like a cruiser to me. And the ST in the name stands for, you guessed it, step through, so you can easily step through the bike frame to get on it. Now, Qronge says that this bike can fit riders from 5'3" to 6'3". I'm 6'3", and I think I'm probably about the maximum limit for a bike this size. It's a little bit of a smaller bike, but I can raise up my seat a little bit higher to make it more comfortable. This is a quick release seat post. Let's try that. There we go, that's a little bit better. And even though this isn't a high-end bike, I do really like the look here. The brown contrasts nicely with the white. It's also available in a couple other colors. Now, this is a 36-volt bike. The company states that it makes 1,000 watts of peak power, but they don't list the nominal power. They also list the torque at 45 Newton meters. So we'll test out the acceleration and power when we ride. Right here, integrated into the frame with this plastic cover, is a 12.8 amp hour battery. And like a lot of e-bike batteries, it's secured with a key. Qronge says that the range of this bike is 40 miles, but like most e-bikes, actual range depends on a ton of factors. With the relatively small battery on this bike, you'd likely have to be doing a lot of pedaling to achieve 40 miles. Qronge also says that this bike can go 25 miles per hour, which seems pretty quick for a bike like this. We'll see how fast we can go when we ride. Now, this bike weighs in at 57 pounds, which is decently light for an e-bike, but obviously if you compare this to a non-electric bike, that would seem pretty heavy. Payload capacity is rated at a claimed 350 pounds, which seems a bit optimistic to me, but maybe it's possible. In terms of storage, we've got this rear rack, and they did include a basket that I haven't had a chance to install yet. I'm actually surprised to see a name brand gear set here for the price of this bike. We've got a 7-speed Shimano here. There are 5 pedal assist modes, and this bike provides a cadence sensor for the pedal assist. There's a thumb throttle on the right side of the handlebars. The brakes are cable operated, and we have 160mm rotors front and rear. And as far as I can tell, I cannot see a brand on these brakes. We've got unbranded adjustable suspension up front and no suspension in the rear. The handlebars have a bit of a curved design to them, making it look slightly more like a cruiser style bike. Got a nice looking seat, and as I mentioned, there's a quick release post here. We'll test out the comfort when we ride. We've got Chaoyang brand 26 by 1.95 inch tires, and these are riding on spoke wheels. And yeah, check this out. We actually have metal fenders front and rear. It's kind of surprising. I'm surprised they're not plastic. There is a small headlight. There's a taillight and a brake light. There is a bell. Looks like it's getting hung up on the shifter. Let's move that over a little bit. There we go. No horn here though. In terms of assembly, the bike is shipped in a large box, and if you're familiar with common hand tools and have about an hour, you can get this thing put together very easily. Unfortunately, when trying to install the optional rear rack, I had to bend the rack slightly to get it to fit, and a couple of the screws stripped, so they had to send out a couple new screws for me to get this installed. But other than that, it went together quite easily. Now, when it comes to inexpensive e-bikes, it's always a great idea to triple check everything before you go out on a ride, especially the headset. Make sure it's tight, make sure the brakes are all working properly. I mean, it's probably just a great idea to do that with any bike. And the Qronge Meteors ST comes with a 2-year warranty. Now, if you want to buy this bike, please use my discount code and purchase link in the description below, which will save you some money, but don't do that just yet. Let's first take this thing for a ride and see how it does. All right, let's see how much power this Qronge Meteors ST has. 45 Newton meters of torque. Let's see how quickly we can get off the line using throttle only. We got the throttle right here on the right side. I won't be doing any pedaling. All right, 3, 2, 1, go. All right, a little bit of a slow start, but it's getting going. Up to 10 miles per hour, 12, 14. Oh, we're almost up to 20. Yeah, that's pretty decent. Let's see if we can make it up to the claimed top speed of 25 before we run out of street. All right, we got 22, 23. I think we're topping out at 22. Topping out at 22. All right, this is a good place to test out the brakes. 3, 2, 1, stop. All right, from 22 to 0. So these are 160 millimeter rotors. They are not hydraulic, they are cable operated brakes. And I'd say if this bike was any faster than that, I would want more brake here. I'd probably want 180 millimeter rotors and hydraulic brakes. But from 22 miles per hour to 0, it's acceptable stopping distance, kind of what I would expect from 160 millimeter rotors and cable operated brakes. All right, let's turn around and get back up to speed. Yeah, I guess if you hold down the throttle for like 10 seconds, cruise control engages, so now I don't have to hold down the throttle at all. That's actually kind of a nice feature, as long as you know that it's there. Yeah, so I don't think I can get this to go quite faster than 23 miles per hour. That seemed to be my top speed here. Maybe with a little bit of a downhill, you can get it to go 25. All right, so one thing that I think it's pretty nice to have at this price point is a Shimano gear set. A lot of times with inexpensive bikes, you do not get any name brand equipment here. However, you might be able to hear a little bit of a click, 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 click. Probably needs a little bit of adjustment. So right out of the box, not perfect, but you know, if you know anything about bikes, you can probably dial that in. All right, so let's dial it back to pedal assist level 0. So the motor is doing absolutely nothing right now. So let's shift it into first gear. Shifting is relatively smooth. Now this isn't Shimano's best shifter right here. Obviously this is a budget bike, but shifting is decent. And it actually sounds like that click went away. Just needed a little bit of riding to kind of settle itself out. Now, if we want to get a little bit more boost here, we'll bring it up to pedal assist level 1, which barely does anything. 2 gives you a lot more power. 3, a lot more than that. Up to 5. Now, with nearly all bikes at this price point, you're going to have a cadence sensor for the pedal assist. And that essentially means that when you pedal, it's like an on-off switch. It tells the motor to provide power or not to provide power. And sometimes there's a little bit of a delay, like right there. There's about a half-second delay from when I started pedaling to when the motor kicked in. And there's a little bit of a delay sometimes when you stop pedaling as well. Again, that's very common with a cadence sensor, and you just kind of get used to that type of feel. You have to spend a little bit more money to get a torque sensor as opposed to a cadence sensor, and that provides a little bit more of a natural feel. But I'm kind of wondering when we're going to start getting torque sensor bikes at this price point. So yeah, cadence sensor is not really exactly a smooth riding experience. It can be a little bit jerky, but as long as you just prepare for that little boost of power when you pedal, it's something that you just kind of grow accustomed to. All right, now let's talk about stability and handling. Now we have pretty thin tires here, but it's a pretty decently stable ride. Now you're not going to be doing any tricks on this bike. You're probably just going to be, riding to school, maybe riding around your neighborhood, riding in the park, that kind of thing. But yeah, I'd feel pretty confident on this thing if I had to make a quick maneuver. So now one of the things that I care a whole lot about when it comes to an e-bike is comfort. Let's start with the seat. This is not my favorite seat. To me, it's not all that comfortable, but again, it's really not that hard to swap out a seat. It really just comes down to a personal preference thing. You may love this seat. One other thing that I like about this bike is that it's pretty lightweight for an e-bike, coming in at 57 pounds. A lot of those fat tire e-bikes are super heavy, and having a lighter bike definitely makes it feel more agile, and certainly will help the range in the long run because you're not carting around all that extra weight. The tires will have less rolling resistance. All right, so we have suspension in the front. It's unbranded. There is a little bit of adjustability to it, so you can kind of dial that into your liking. It's not a high-end setup, but it's nice to just have suspension in general on a bike at this price point. So yeah, if you push down on that, you can feel a fair amount of squish, fair amount of soaking up of all these imperfections in the road. No suspension in the back though. Now let's talk about riding position. Now this bike is maybe a little bit too small for me, but I feel like it's still pretty comfortable. I got the seat in a pretty good spot. It's adjustable with that quick release seat post. There's a tiny bit of adjustability on the handlebars, and they have a bit of a curved design, which means that you're gonna have a little bit more of an upright riding position, so you're not completely like hunched over the bike like you would be on a mountain bike, and I do like that. And I mentioned this in a lot of my videos, I much prefer a thumb throttle to a twist throttle because I have tendonitis and carpal tunnel in my hand, so this is a lot easier on my wrist than a twist where you kind of have to hold it down. And I also do like the fact that we've got that cruise control, which can save your wrist altogether. Just let it do its thing. Now these aren't the most expensive looking grips in the world, but they're actually quite grippy. I do really like them. I also like the fact that we have a bell here. I've ridden much more expensive bikes that don't have a bell or a horn. And when it comes to commuting, if you actually did want to ride this to work or school or that kind of thing, it's very nice to have a decent headlight. It's really nice to have brake light in the back, make you a little bit more visible when it's dark out. Now, this is a very small display. It's not very high tech, but you know what? This is actually one of the better e-bike displays that I've used because it is so bright. You don't have to worry about glare or anything like that. It's very easy to see how fast you're going. It's very easy to see what pedal assist level you're at. So yeah, a very cheap, inexpensive display, but honestly, it works really well. So yeah, in terms of range, it's really hard to say how far this bike could go because it depends on so many factors. It depends on how much you weigh, it depends on the terrain, how much you're using the throttle, how much you're pedaling, what the weather is like. So there's a lot of different factors there. So just keep in mind that, yeah, this bike isn't gonna take you 40 miles unless you're pedaling a whole lot. My guess is you can probably do maybe 15, 20 in a pinch if you are doing mostly throttle only riding. And obviously a lot more than that if you are pedaling. So for this type of kind of more relaxed riding, this bike is really nice. You know, we're not pushing the bike too hard, we're not going too fast, but for, you know, cruising around your neighborhood, that kind of thing, this has a lot going for it, especially if you're on a budget and you want to spend a ton of money. You know, if this bike is for your kid, you know, it's got decent features. So yeah, for $699, if you keep your expectations in line with what this bike can actually do and what you can actually get at this price point, I think a lot of people would be happy with this bike. All right, let's ramp it back up to level 5 for one more little run up this road. See how quickly we can get this thing to go. Oh, and the other thing I should mention is that I've ridden a lot of more expensive bikes where the motor is actually quite loud. This is actually a pretty quiet e-bike. All right, so we didn't quite hit the 25 mile per hour claim top speed here, but I think that's fine given the type of brakes we have on this bike. I wouldn't want to go much faster than that. So what do you think? If you're on a budget, would this bike be for you? Let me know in the comments below. All right, so how much does all of this cost you? The Qronge Meteors ST comes in at $699. When it comes to budget-minded commuter-style e-bikes, this price is actually pretty competitive. Now, obviously, if you're considering a sub-$700 e-bike, chances are you're on a budget. And when compared to the much higher-end bikes out there, it's clear how they're able to hit this price point. Cable brakes instead of hydraulic, 36-volt system instead of 48, smaller battery, thinner tubing, that kind of thing. And that's not necessarily a bad thing if it means affording a bike versus not having a bike at all, as long as you correctly set your expectations for an inexpensive e-bike and don't really ask it to do something that it wasn't really designed to do. It could prove to be a very useful and fun machine, something that just gets you outside, something that you can use to ride to school or ride around a campground, or for a teenager to tool around the neighborhood. As I mentioned before, if you'd like to purchase this bike, please use my discount code and purchase link in the description below. It will save you some money. So what do you think of the Qronge Meteors ST? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video and you want to see more like it, please consider subscribing and hitting that bell icon. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you're well, and I'll see you soon.